Hey everyone, welcome to our live Q&A. I'm Natalie, founder and director of the Parentmedic movement, and we've got Shelley Jurd all the way in Canberra coming to do a live session with us. How are you?
Well, thanks, Natalie. How are you?
Yeah, good. Now, before we start, just making a mindful mention that we are using technology, and if there's any hiccups along the way, I'm at home with my two kids. So if there's any noise, I have warned them not to come in. That might be the case, and I'm sure it's the same with Shelley. But the one thing that we want to do in this time is share as much information as possible with parents. And look, it's not going to be perfect when we do have kids running around in the background, but we don't want that to stop us from getting this really important information out there. So Shelley is an ED nurse. So Shelley, I'm going to let you do a little quick intro yourself.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not an ED nurse. I'm an intensive care nurse. That's okay. I have worked in ED briefly, but I'm trained in critical care. I'm not with children, with adults, but I do have two children of my own, and I've got a background in childcare as well. So.
That's still amazing. Sorry, my apologies.
I remember.
Okay, we're going to get cracking. So obviously you've done an intense amount of study, and one of the things as a paramedic licensed educator is learning how to interpret what you've learned to share that knowledge to parents. So any of those people watching, going live can be really nervous for us and Shelley. If you do love what you're seeing, please comment. You can ask questions. I can see what questions you might have. Share this into your local mums groups just to help us get the word out there, because the more encouragement that you give us, the more we love going live. So we've got to get cracking because we know everyone's a bit time poor these days. The first question, and we're covering fever today. It's one of the most common topics for parents to be really fearful of. I still remember when my children got their first fever, feeling how hot they are is insanely scary, especially at a young age. And when people like us turn around and say, don't stress, it's not a terrible thing, sometimes you sit there and go, whatever, it feels terrible. So what we want to do in this session, Shelley, and I'm sure you agree, is we want to bring it back down to the basics and just teach you the red flags. So your child's got the fever, and this is what we're saying you need to look out for that might indicate it's a bit more serious than just that. So tell us, Shelley, what is considered a temperature?
Okay, so as Nat said, can be very, very scary. We all have thermometers. We're parents, we're mothers. We worry about these things before we even have our children. We go and buy our thermometer, and suddenly our child feels hot, and we get scared. A normal temperature, so when you take your thermometer, whether it be under the arm thermometer, ear thermometer, one of the ones you've put on the forehead, please make sure that you are using the thermometer that's appropriate for the age of your child. So it'll say on the packet, don't use this in a child that's under 3 months old. It's really important to actually, if you are going to use a thermometer, to use it properly. Look at how it works and figure out if it's going to go in the ear, where you're supposed to point it. Take that temperature. A normal temperature is supposed to be between 36.5 to 37.5 degrees. But you will know straight away when you pick up your baby or your child and they have a temperature. We always say in Parentmedic, you don't need a thermometer because you will know.
I know that all the thermometer companies might kill us. Look, thermometers are really great for peace of mind. But that actually brings me back to, Shelley, often I hear people going, my child is 39, it must mean it's serious. Or I see this often in social media posts where they'd be like, my child has a fever, it's 39, and then people go, that's way too high, you must go to ED. I think there's this general misconception that the temperature will indicate the seriousness of the fever. Is there any information that you can give to parents on that thought process?
Okay, so it's one of those things, it used to be babies with temperatures or children with temperatures. It's a terrible thing. You need to get it down as soon as possible because it's going to fry their brain and they're going to be terribly disadvantaged because they've had a temperature. Now, temperatures are actually, bear with me because this is new stuff, very good for you. So when you have usually a bacterial infection, so you have a bug that enters your body, your body is designed to fight that bacteria, and it's designed to go and get a bit warm so that bacteria can't thrive in your body, so it can't live in there. We used to always go, okay, babies, children, fevers, put them in the cold bath, get that temperature down, give them Panadol straight away because the Panadol is going to bring the fever down. It's not the case. We suggest now that you keep your baby comfortable. So let me just give you a little bit of an idea here. So I have two children. I have a 10-month-old and a 3-year-old, right? They both got an infection a few weeks ago. My oldest only had a temperature of 37.6, so he wasn't feverish at all, but he was really, really unwell. He had the same bacterial infection. My youngest, the 10-month-old, had a temperature of 39.3, but he was bounding around the room, carrying on like nothing was happening, eating all his food, not having any problems with life at all. So, of course, I looked at my children and I realized something was going on. They were both unwell, but I wasn't worried about the temperatures as such. I was more concerned that my eldest was lethargic, wasn't eating, didn't want to drink, he had a really sore throat, and he just was miserable. So this proves to you that the actual number that comes out of that thermometer is not what you're looking at as a parent. Because you'll know if your baby or your child is really unwell, you'll know. The number is something that's useful to go to a doctor if your child's been unwell for a few days and go, listen, they've had a fever, it's been up this high, I've given them paracetamol, or we've done everything, we're making sure we're giving up the child lots of fluids, lots to drink, but nothing's happened and they're just getting worse, as opposed to just going in there and going, oh yeah, he felt a bit hot.
Yeah. So that just puts me, and thank you for sharing your personal circumstance with fever, because I think we really do need to step away from, it was this, so it's serious. So let's first discuss, when should I treat my baby's temperature? You're telling me it's a good thing, right? And we have to be conscious, because even if my child has a temperature, maybe let's go through the thought process of when I'd use a medication. So could you tell me what are and when you say we, I just want to make note that the Royal Children's Hospital has great fact sheets. And if you go to the Royal Children's Hospital right now and type in fevers in kids health fact info, or what it is, whatever it is on their website, it's great. You'll be able to get this exact information. So when we're referring to we're talking about those industry bodies that make the decisions. And right now, there's a general consensus fevers aren't as bad as we thought they were. Bearing in mind, there was a purpose, Shelley, and sorry to interrupt, to why we used to think fevers were so serious. It was their association with febrile convulsions. So we're not going to go into febrile convulsions too much at the moment, but the one thing I want to express is that we generally find that children are prone to them or not, and fevers are a trigger. So don't think that if your child's getting this huge fever, that automatically means they're going to febrile convulsions. So if you want us to talk about more about febrile convulsions, please put in the comments. For those that have just joined us live, share with your groups, comment below, write questions, because that's what keeps us going with these live sessions. So Shelley, now tell me, how am I meant to treat my baby's temperature?
Okay, so my suggestion and our suggestion, as in the Royal Children's Hospital and other bodies that teach first aid and what to do with children, suggest that you don't treat the temperature, you treat the child. So if your child is very unwell, they're looking, they're complaining of pain, or they look like they're distressed because they're in pain. Sometimes they're little, you don't know if they're in pain, but they pull their legs up and look distressed, then by all means give them some paracetamol. Make sure you follow the instructions on the bottle carefully and you use the appropriate ones for your child, because there's a range of different paracetamols out there. That's a whole nother topic as well. Make sure you treat, so you can give them paracetamol. You can, if they're feeling really, really hot and they're dressed like it's the middle of winter, fair enough, take off a layer of clothing, but don't go and take off all of their clothes and try and cool them down. Nat mentioned the febrile convulsions just before, and one of the triggers that they think of for febrile convulsions is a quick change in temperature. So sometimes it can be that temperature getting too high really fast or coming down too fast. So just pull off one layer. Try and make your baby as comfortable as possible, your child as comfortable as possible, and just be wary that you don't want them shivering. So shivering is a normal response to being cold. We've all been feverish before and got the shivers, and all you want to do, you're really hot, but you actually need more warm on you to stop you from shivering, because shivering has the response of actually making you hotter. It's designed to warm you up. So like today in Canberra, it's freezing. I'm sitting here with my short sleeves on, and I feel a bit shivery, so my body's trying to warm up. And that also happens when you have a fever. So
that's really interesting, because I think we sometimes associate with I'm shivering because I'm cold.
Yeah.
But really we're shivering, yes, because we're shivering more so to create more heat. And that can happen when you're too cold, or it can happen when your body's having a very purposeful response. And I think that's what I love about fevers, that we forget that sometimes fevers is a very mindful, very strategic process of our body. And as humans, we're trying to do or counteract something that we really have very limited control over. Talking about treatment, Shelley, because this comes up and it's a great question. So sorry if I'm throwing you a whammy that's not here. The recommendations is not to treat a child with any medication for temperatures unless they're irritable or in pain. Then why on earth, when I go to hospital and present with a temperature or my child, are they giving this treatment to reduce the temperature?
Okay, so this is a tricky one, and it's people hate the answer. Usually what they're doing is trying to make you as the parent more comfortable, because they go, this child is fine, and it's all is okay. If we get this temperature down, we can send them home, and the parents will be comfortable because the temperature will be lower.
Yeah. It's a terrible answer. And anyone that's in working in ED wanting to kill us, I don't blame you. But I think there needs to be, it's funny because I'm a community nurse, but when I did a placement in ED, I said to them, why on earth are we giving paracetamol? There's nothing else wrong. And I did get just got to get it down. Now, if you're feeling like we're pulling the blindfold over you, it's very difficult in those circumstances to provide education. And that's why you'll find people love being parent-medic educators, because in a health professional, unless you're a community nurse like me that can talk a lot most of the time, it's very difficult to sit down and go, well, this is what a temperature is, this is what the recommendation, this is why we're doing this, what we're doing that. I think there is a degree, for example, we're always tracking temperatures in hospital because it's a great indicator that something was wrong. So if we're talking about, for example, when my mother had sepsis, she had a temperature, it wasn't going down. There is a degree of wanting it to sit within a certain range. We don't ever want to see it going crazy. And paracetamol is a great tool to reduce it to within that range, which helps us manage it a bit better. But it's not really there to fix the problem. So there you go. That's an interesting one. When should I worry? And again, just a reminder for any new listeners, please write any questions in the comment box, share the live away, or just if you're loving it, throw us some like buttons, because we can see that happening as well. When should I worry about my baby's temperature? Is it more serious under a certain age, or when is the time that I'm like, oh my God, this is an emergency?
Okay, so worry about your children's temperature if they've got other signs and symptoms that are concerning. So they usually suggest that if your child's temperature has been high, so above 38 degrees for more than 48 hours, then you should go and see a GP. Just to go and get them checked out. They might have an ear, simple ear infection, something that a quick dose of antibiotics will help sort out. And it's always a good idea just to get them checked out, especially if it's taken 2 days for them to look better, if that makes sense. Definitely take them to the doctor if they are very distressed and you can't seem to get them comfortable. So you give them the paracetamol and they're still really upset and you can't get them to settle down, you're really worried. Take them to the doctor as well if they're not drinking properly. and they're starting to have less wet nappies, because that means they're starting to get dehydrated, and you need to get someone to check them out and try and get as much fluids into them as possible. I think we go into that next question. If they start getting really drowsy or unresponsive, take them to the doctor or call an ambulance. If they're really unresponsive, it could be a sign that something horrible is happening. And also, if they've had like a few days of diarrhea and vomiting, then that whole dehydration thing comes into play as well. So make sure you go and see someone if you're and main thing we always say in Parentmedic as well, if you're concerned, you are the best judge as a parent. You know exactly what's happening with your child. Even if they're only 3 days old, you know how your baby, you have that instinct, use it. As a nurse, we always trust parents' instincts more than anything else. So if you think something is worrying, go and see someone about it. Then we always suggest that it's a really good idea to go to emergency and get them checked out if they have a rash with that fever and they seem distressed, because that can lead, it's a whole nother topic again, but it could be something like meningococcal. So it's better to go and get them checked out with that. Google the glass test. Everyone should know that as a parent. If that rash doesn't disappear when you push on it, it's really important that you see someone straight away. And also go and start to worry about temperatures when your child has a febrile convulsion. So once again, another topic, but if they start to have a seizure or seem absent and have a fever, it's scary, it's terrifying. You'll want to call an emergency service anyway, but definitely don't hesitate, go and see someone about it. They can be quite harmless, but as a parent, you're going to want that support when that happens.
They're really scary. And, it's funny when I recommend this, go to YouTube, Google febrile convulsions, because parents do share what it looks like. And have a watch. Just do it now. Spend 2 minutes. No, not now. Finish this episode. But go Google YouTube, febrile convulsions. They're really scary, but they are somewhat harmless unless there's an underlying condition of some sort. And obviously, if your baby's under 3 months, I'm not sure whether you mentioned about baby under 3 months, they're no good at controlling the temperatures. So straight away. And I'm really hoping, I've been in ED with my child, and I don't know whether you have, Shelley. I had one of my children, 9 and 11 now, had severe asthma. So always in ED. And how many parents would see there sitting with their baby who's got fever for hours on end? You want to manage that at home. So empower yourself with as much knowledge to manage that from home. One of the most common reasons that you might present to the hospital and we might go, it's a fever, but the majority of the times that there's something more serious occurring, if there's not an underlying condition, it's because they've become dehydrated. And no one talks about this enough. And I've just tell everyone to learn about dehydration. It's really common with kids. And taking it back to a psychological thing, as an adult, I'm sick, I go to the doctor. The doctor will say to me, keep up your fluids, right? With a fever, I'm getting really hot. And I just remember, like, you sit there sipping your water with your sore throat. You're like, I don't want to drink. But as an adult, we do, because we realize how important it is. Your child won't, okay? Your child doesn't sit there and go, although my throat's hurting a little bit, I better drink this fluid. So I really want to spread as much love and advocacy around dehydration. So tell me, what are the signs of dehydration? Why are they so serious? And you can apply this if your child gets gastro, by the way. Again, another thing, if you want us to talk about gastro, pop it in the comments. Maybe me and Shelley can do that another day. What are the signs? And how do we look out for it? And what are some tips for new parents? Breastfeeding, formula fed, am I giving water, whatever? What are your suggestions? Tell us.
So dehydration is one of the most common complaints when children come to emergency. And parents don't often realize, they're always concerned about their fever or the gastro itself, but they don't put into play, they don't come in going, oh, I'm worried because my baby is dehydrated. This is really, really important stuff. When you're dehydrated, your blood's not pumping around your body properly, and you're going to feel absolutely rubbish. It's going to make you feel awful. And as a child, it's going to make them feel really, really awful because they've only got a few liters of fluid going around their bodies. It's really important to keep children's fluids up, especially when they're unwell. So they recommend that if you're breastfeeding or you're bottle feeding, don't necessarily sit there and expect them to finish a 250 ml bottle of fluid. Just offer as much fluids as they will take through the day. Obviously, make up your formula like it says on the bottle. Don't try and add water and things because that can be quite harmful to children as well. That's if they're under the 6-month age when they can start taking in cold boiled water. But just little sips. Try and encourage as much fluid as possible. If you're breastfeeding, pop them on the breast as often as you can tolerate it. It can be really hard, but you're going to have to potentially wake them up to keep their fluids up as well. It sounds awful. No?
No, just raising your hand. Absolutely. And that's where we talk about paracetamol has its purpose. So it's going to be very difficult to feed a child who has a sore throat, right, or feeling in pain. So you definitely want to eliminate that as a factor to help with improving their fluid uptake.
Definitely. And that's one of the indicators for taking the pain relief. So if they're running around, bounding around, drinking properly, and they have a fever, they're fine. But once they start being miserable and really not wanting to eat and drink, then that definitely has its place there. And you can start giving them that, preempt. Okay, so they usually have their, middle of the night feed at 3 a.m. Let's give them a dose of paracetamol 3 or 4 hours before then. And then hopefully they'll get in those fluids and really have a good feed. And hopefully you won't have to wake up so much through the night with them. But definitely encourage as much fluids as they'll take. Don't worry about the food. Food, you can live for days without food. But you definitely need fluids. And it's horrible having to take your child into hospital for fluids. I've been there.
Yeah.
I had my little...
I've been there too.
He was 7 months old and he got a urinary tract infection. We were living in Malaysia. And we had to take him in for antibiotics through the veins and give him fluids, and he was miserable, the poor little guy. And it's awful. It's a horrible thing to have to see your child have all these and things in them. So
and if people notice I raise my hand, with the technology we use, we actually can't talk at the same time, so it's a bit awkward. But that's just I experienced that. So my youngest, I think it was 8 months, had and if you've experienced it, please comment, because I think it's a really important topic. Had gastro, and I thought I was taking her in for the tummy bug, but really what was occurring was a lack of fluid. And because she was so little, they had to put a tube in to get her fluids in and bound her hands so she couldn't take it off. And for a good 6 hours, I had my mum with me. Thanks, Mum, if you watch this. And I remember holding her hands down for 6 hours, just allowing this fluid to go in, and it was a horrible experience. And to think it was only from dehydration. So when we're considering rehydrating, Shelley, so we want to make sure our bubs is comfortable. So great topic, getting them ready for the feed. I think, also just to throw in there a bit off topic is if they can't feed properly, babies breathe through their mouth for the first few months. So you'd want to make sure they've got no pain. B, possibly using the aspirate of some sort so they're not congested at the nose if it's associated with a cold. We went through that prior. And then anything else we're missing? And what are the signs that your child is dehydrated?
So you'll be able to tell initially because they'll just become lethargic and off, but pale. You'll see that just like as with adults, you get that dryness in your mouth and your nose. The biggest tell with babies and young children is their nappies. You'll notice that they're having less wet nappies, and you'll find that the urine's quite odorous, so it'll have a smell to it. It'll look a bit more yellow. That can be a sign that you really need to start thinking about getting some help. They say if they're drinking half of what they usually drink or only weeing out half of what they usually wee, it's a really big pointer that things can change really quickly from there. So go and get some help sooner rather than later. And I could say to you, if they have 2 wet nappies as opposed to 5, it doesn't relate to that, because your child will be different to my child. I know both my kids have very different nappy wetting abilities. My eldest was, you change him every 2 hours and he would be sopping wet, and the other one not so much. So it all depends on your child. So you know your child best. If you see that they're having less wet nappies and you're concerned about that, definitely go and take them to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about getting help, more than ever now we want to get help from home. I just brief mention, if you're watching this video later, might not occur, but right now during COVID-19 in Australia, we do have free telehealth services for whether it's a doctor or a psychologist. So there are some wonderful telehealth services out there. Medinet's one that we really love because the founder is a mum, and she basically started this service knowing that she wanted to get help from home. So we have a little bit about how to set yourself up a Medinet in our online course. But thank you, Shelley. I really enjoyed this session. So we're just going to run through a bit of information. As mentioned, we do have an amazing online course. And what we've done is created the online course to support our educators like Shelley. So we have had to cancel in-person events, obviously for the safety of our educators and the community. And we won't foresee starting them back up again until we feel it's safe for everyone. We think about everything very intensely at Parentmedic before we do things. But when we made the decision to cancel in-person events, the last thing that we wanted to leave you guys doing is hanging, not being able to access to this really vital information. So our online product doesn't replace our in-person events, but what it does is anyone that's expecting, so if you do know someone who's about to pop out of bubs or has a bubs during this time, we've collectively got the main important topics, that the most common reasons you'd go to ED with a new baby. So we just wanted to make sure we ticked all that stuff off the list and everyone had access to that education. And when you purchase that, you are, I've just changed my banner, you are helping Shelley survive during this COVID-19 period. So after all this, we can get back to doing what we're good at, and that is our in-person events. But talking about our in-person events, Shelley, I love the support you're getting in Canberra. Again, if you know people in Canberra, tag them away in this post and let's get the word around Canberra. I had the beautiful opportunity of coming to Canberra when we got evacuated from Eden, and Shelley helped me out. Some of Shelley's friends helped me out in Canberra with all the smoke. It was terrible. But tell me, when life goes back to normal, Shelley, what are you offering to your Canberra community in person or in public events?
I'm lucky enough I do both. So with the in-person events, I can come to your home and I can teach you, your family members, your friends, all the important stuff that you need to know to look after your children. We cater mainly for the younger children, and it's amazing. I love how you've set this up, Nat, because we come into your home, we teach you what you need to know right now, with being able to help your child, save your child in an emergency. We'll give you all the first aid, health and wellness tips for your kids, as well as safety around your home. And we do it all with your children there. Yep, that's right, with your kids there. That's what I loved about this, and why I became a paramedic, because I wanted to do first aid courses when my children were young, and I couldn't give up 6 hours to go to some quiet hall somewhere and sit down and listen to someone talk about it for 6 hours. Our courses are 2 hours. We come into your home, your kids can be there, you can sit and practice on them. Obviously don't push their chest with CPR, but you can sit there and learn CPR and first aid tips with your kids on your lap, playing around, and it's great. And I
think importantly, when we were reflecting on, is it a 2-hour course or a 3-hour course? 2 hours is a magic number, not for us adults, for our kids. It's like the time that they needed to get fed and they needed to. So when we said child friendly, I wanted to make sure we really meant it. It wasn't meant you bring your kid along and then 2 hours later we'll continue trying to teach while you're trying to change a nappy. It is really about, okay, let's make sure that you are in full form. We even sit there learning, because to become a paramedic educator, we do a course, and part of that is understanding how to teach very sleep-deprived people. So, we think about it very thoroughly. Briefly, Shelley, can you share why you love to be a paramedic? I feel like you covered this, but maybe you can summarize it in one sentence.
I love it because it gives me flexibility with my family, and I feel so passionate about it. And I was passionate about it before I became a paramedic, but now that I am a paramedic, I love giving parents peace of mind. And
Yes.
that's what we do. We come and teach you the simple things that you can do just to make you more comfortable with making decisions. And what a pleasure to be able to teach you that.
It is a real pleasure. And you know what? I think when we're teaching, we respectfully realize that we go through what you guys go through. So even if my child's sick, sometimes we're like, hey guys, what do you think? Like, we know, but just having that support is so wonderful. All right, how can I become a paramedic educator? Of course, we always build in our community during COVID-19 or not. To become an educator, you do have to complete an online course. It's self-paced. You get connected to a mentor, and it's a big course. I'm not going to lie. It's about 30 hours. It isn't willy-nilly just come and go run our course. So, and we created a really wonderful community. Now, just to tie this all up together, if you're watching this and you want to show your support to Shelley, how can people purchase an online product from you?
So you need to go to www.parentmedic.co, so just co at the end.com, and you scroll down to the bottom and it'll ask you about doing our online course. And when you see the online course, you'll see a beautiful picture of me with my son, and you press on that and it'll take you to the course and you can purchase it. It's $49.95. With that, you get access to the online course, which has some fantastic, easy to follow resources on it. So there's some videos, a little bit of reading, and it's very intuitive, very easy to use. Natalie's done a fantastic job setting that up. And at the end of the course, it'll prompt you to use Medinet. So Natalie mentioned Medinet before. It's the GP service that you can use in your home. It was set up by a fellow mum, Tess, and she's done a great job with that. So you go, the course will teach you how to preempt using Medinet. It's a free service during COVID-19 if your child's under 1. Am I correct now?
Yeah, and it's actually if you bear in mind my audio went funny. If you do the course, it's free GP. Your first consultation with the GP is completely free for any paramedic referred person.
Perfect. So you can go in there. We'll teach you how to set it all up, because the last thing you want to do when your child is properly sick and you need to see a doctor is have to fill in all the paperwork. So the course will go through how to set yourself up to use Medinet. So when you need to go, you basically have like your practice session. So when you need to go in there and use it, it's all the details are in there. You just press a button and you get to speak to a GP. It's a fantastic service, and it also gives you access. Well, you can have access to this at any time, but the course will teach you how to use it as well. Is our triage tool. So set up a fantastic messenger bot triage tool, which you can go in. I've used it before. It's very, very intuitive, easy to use. You can go in there. It'll ask you questions about what's happening with your child, and you just answer. You click on the buttons and it'll tell you what you need to do. So either go and see your GP, go to emergency, or just stay at home and give your child lots of love.
Wonderful. Thanks, Shelley. We've just got one comment, and I don't necessarily need to share it, but I think just because she took the time out to say hi to you, I reckon we should do a big hello back. You know who this is?
It's a very special friend of mine, Bex. Hi, Bex.
Hi, Bex. All right. Thank you, guys. We're going to end the session here. Bear in mind, what is the time now? At 2:00, we are doing another session with Shelley. And if you're watching this recorded session, you'll be able to find it in the recordings. We're doing another session on magnets and batteries. What happens if your child does to swallow one? Thank you, guys, for your support. Please do comment below and share with your family and friends.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to put my email address below. So if you have any questions about becoming a paramedic or about the course or anything that we've discussed today, please don't hesitate to message me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Okay.